And welcome to RealAg Live, everybody. Really appreciate it. I'm your host, Shaun Haney. Thanks a lot for tuning in today. Hopefully you're having a great day out in the field or on the ranch, wherever you are watching. It's Tuesday edition of the show here today. Hey, I want to remind everybody to please check out RealAg Radio, which you can hear on Rural Radio 147 at 4:30 Eastern, 2:30 Mountain. Today we are going to have a real breakdown of, you've probably heard about it, the Canadian Fuel Standard, the CFS. We're going to hear from both Brian Innes, the Canola Council of Canada, as well as Ian Thompson from Advanced Biofuels from a biodiesel producer perspective. So don't miss that. You can also get the podcast at realagradio.com. But we are here for RealAg Live. If you have a question for today's guest, all you got to do is enter your question in the comment box below, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. This is an interactive program, people, so please jump in the discussion. Today's guest, we're going to bring him in here right now. It is Marvin Talsma. He is with Cliamte FieldView. Marvin, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, hey, great to chat with you. Thanks a lot for tuning in today. Really do appreciate it. Marvin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so based in southwestern Ontario, been in agriculture my whole career. Love it, but it kind of happened by accident. So worked putting my way through school, loved working with farmers. They're authentic, great people, and decided to stick with it. So that's what I'm about.
So what attracted you to the industry?
Oh, the job at first, just to pay my way through university, where I studied history and politics, and I started as a laborer in a feed mill and interacting with farmers, helping them load trucks and make feed and stuff like that. I just fell in love with what they did, and kind of wished my mom and dad lived on a farm.
We sucked you in. We just sort of pulled you in.
Oh, there is this allure. There's this. There is an allure. It's a lifestyle that I think farmers. It's not for everybody, but it's a lifestyle that once you are part of it, it's hard to not accept it and just get involved.
That's pretty cool. So I sorry if I missed it, but where did you grow up? What town?
So I grew up in London, Ontario. Continued to reside there with my wife Carrie and my 3 girls. So we're getting a little tired of each other with COVID, but trying to interact and do virtual school and work all at the same time in the same small house, but it's good.
Yeah, I think we're all there, man. We're all there. Hey, a question for you. Okay, let's start off here. Now, when I think of precision agriculture, I think it kind of all started at harvest time because we started to collect yield data. So let's start where we got farmers across the country either preparing for harvest, in the middle of harvest, or maybe some are just kind of done depending on where they are in the southern tip of Saskatchewan and Alberta. But how does precision ag fit into the harvest time of year?
Harvest, I agree with you, Shaun. Harvest is where we started with yield information, and yield information is really, to me, it's a report card for a farmer. I had somebody share with me last week. Farmers work so hard through the season, planning their crop, getting it to get started. With different seed treatments, they apply herbicides and fungicides, and at harvest, it's a report card. How did I do? And the yield map really gives them the opportunity to look at different things that they've done in their field. A colleague described it as harvest is a Super Bowl every season, or for us in Canada, it's the Stanley Cup. Yeah. We go through that season and it's grueling and it can be hard. We're dealing with Mother Nature that throws us more rain or not enough rain, or that hailstorm, and those are the uncontrollables. But the controllables, this time of year gives us the opportunity to look at that. So with digital or precision and tools like FieldView, if we have to ask ourselves, what do we want to learn? So farmers do trials, whether they know it or not. They may be an accident, where forgot to turn on fertilizer in the field at planting or seeding. So if they know where that happened, they can learn the impact of that using the yield information that they have.
Yeah. So, there's a lot, like you said, a lot of variables being thrown at farmers. So being prepared is critical. So from a precision ag standpoint, what are some of the things they can do to be prepared
Yeah.
for the harvest that's in front of them.
Yeah. First thing, make sure get your combine out now. Your harvest equipment. Have a look at your yield monitoring system. Calibrate it. If you got crops that's close to being close, put your combine in the field. Do some weights if you can. With FieldView, plug in our FieldView drive and connect it to the iPad or whatever you're using. Update your software on your monitor in your combine. Have your tech guy out from your dealership and have them update to the latest platform. With FieldView, our recommendation is the same thing. Run the latest version of our software, of our app on the iPad, so that you have the best experience.
Can you experience problems if you don't run the latest update? Because I know sometimes when my computer prompts me and says update, I got to be honest, I like sort of like tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, no, I hear you. Absolutely. Sometimes you're scared because you don't know what changes or problems, and that's digital. Whatever apps you're running, they have bugs. And the difference between digital and other things that we've been used to in the past is the testing we do the testing for the developers. They throw it out there so fast and we use it and report bugs. So to answer your question, you don't have to update. If you're a farmer in Western Canada who's already started harvesting and your things are going fine, I would say, wait, let's not update. But if you're experiencing an issue and you talk to our support department and they recommend updating, let's give it a shot and see, because that's the purpose of our updates, is not only to provide new features and enhancements, but to create a better user experience, fix things that have been causing grief for farmers as they go through.
Yeah, talk about what happens when you don't calibrate that combine.
Oh, well, if you don't calibrate, is your information, is your data really real? Do you really understand what's going on? It's a yield monitor is a gauge. It's a guide. It's not, farmers sell their grain over a scale by weight. But if your yield monitor is not calibrated, do you really have a true understanding of what's going on in your field? I've had farmers tell me it's all relative. They would never calibrate their combines, and in a wheat crop, they'd have yields between 20 and 30 bushels, and 30 bushels was the equivalent of over 100 bushels. And why don't you want to know what is actually going on? So the importance, I think, when you're calibrated, it's more of a true picture. It's cleaner information to help you make those decisions.
Yeah, it's sort of like better information in, better data in, better information out kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can remember when Precision Ag first hit we started collecting all this data and having all these maps. It was like a winter project to clean it up, make sense of it, realize that you pressed the wrong button and you didn't capture a field, or like it was a nightmare. We've come a long ways.
Oh, absolutely. Digital precision has come a long way in the software, doing a lot of that processing and cleaning for you. There's still mistakes that can be made. A lot of it, did we register yield because the head was too low and we were putting grain through, things like that. Now, there's still the opportunity to do some post-calibration if we need to. Like if we want to make that yield map a truer picture, we can take the actual weight that we've got for a field or a farm from the scale, and we can input that in. We can adjust the average moisture. Sometimes with harvest or seeding, we get different acres than the actual area of the field, either because of elevation changes or leaving our piece of equipment in harvest mode while we're turning around in the headlands. That adds acres, so we can reduce those acres. Again, it gives us a truer picture of what's happening in that field. And then when we get to looking at that data, you want that true picture when I'm comparing, this field to this field to do some post-harvest analysis. You want the correct acres. You want the correct results.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask about next is, once I'm finished harvest and I have this data,
Yep.
What do I do with it? Am I just feeling good about the fact that I've collected it and I'm a part of that club, or do I how do I take that next step to actually turn that information into maybe some decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question that I think every farmer uses it somewhat differently. But one of the nice things with FieldView, and I think one of your guests previously, Denise Hockaday, talked about the sharing capability that FieldView has. So farmer can use that data, look at field to field, look at weather patterns. That all that information can be found within the FieldView platform, and maybe performance field to field was because of rainfall. They were far enough apart that one same variety or hybrid planted, but it was a rainfall issue or a soil type difference, and start to evaluate that. Work with the people that you work with as advisors to look at possible seed, hybrid, or variety differences by soil type.
So in your ecosystem, where does the weather data come from? Like, so if I have field A over here, how do I know how much rain fell in that area?
Yeah, we work with the weather, a weather provider that's global, and it's the information that we get on a day-to-day basis is based on the radar. So tools there are reading the amount of moisture that's in that radar. It's based on I forget the size of block. I want to say it's a kilometer, but I'll fact check that one. Don't take my word for that. But and we predict where it's going to fall.
Okay.
And then as we track that moisture through the season, or that precipitation through the season, we take that estimation that we're providing growers within 24 hours or hours of that event happening, and within 72 hours we use local weather stations and the measurement that they get to true up that information, and that's what shows up in your season to date precipitation total.
So can you give me some go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just say weather is something that we talk a lot about, and we rely on weather forecasts and weather information, and yet I think they're wrong more than they're right. It's a very difficult industry to gather information and accurately, because it can differ. If we have a thunderstorm system go through, and I'm sure you've experienced this. I know I've experienced this, where you can be standing on one side of the road and getting soaked, and go to the other side of the road and be perfectly dry.
Absolutely.
So how do you track stuff like that with weather stations that are static and in one place? So it's a very difficult thing to do, but we're trying our best to provide some of this information to help make decisions.
Now, I know you're in Eastern Canada, Marvin, but I'm going to ask you this question. So pertaining to weather. So Jim Hale farms in Lancer, Saskatchewan. He's got a question here. He's watching on Twitter. So how does it work if 3 or 4 of the radar stations are down all season in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan? Then what?
Yeah, great question. You hope that we can have access to more weather stations. It's very difficult. Absolutely. I hear your pain. We've experienced that. It's similar to a tool that we have like Imagery. We can't tell the satellite you've got to be over at this time because we're going to be cloud free and it's going to be daylight. We're running on their schedule, and we rely on those factors. And I'll be honest with you, some of the radar stations or weather stations are older, and they need to be updated. And how can we be part of that and impact that, or possibly add new stations that are out there? And those are all things that we explore as we look to improve what we offer.
Yeah, and you mentioned the sharing. I'll get to that in a second, but when we think about all the data that we're collecting, so we got some weather, we got soil type, we've got what we planted, a whole bunch of stuff. We're able to layer all of that and come up with some tables and reports based on some of those variables, or like what is the output?
Yeah, so we can get a season summary, which gives us a picture of everything that has been recorded in FieldView. So we can create that in our platform. some of the features is looking at side by side, so I can look at my seeding or planting information beside my harvest map or beside my application map. I can create zones on the screen with my finger and get a subfield analysis of that. So if I have a field that I tried a new fungicide on, left a check strip, I want to know the impact of that on my farm from a yield perspective. I can select that pass where I applied fungicide, and right beside it, select the pass where I left that untreated check, and get that performance just in that small area of the field. When it comes to layering in weather, that takes a little bit different. We can go to our website and select weather and look at field by field weather information, when rainfall events happened. If we know when things like flowering or pollination happen, we can look at, did we have the rainfall event at that right time to really impact that? Was that something that impacted my yield? So it takes getting to know where to look, but the information is there for us to use to really start making better decisions for the following season.
I think that I sometimes wonder if agronomically we don't, in terms of weather, we're always like, hey, what is the next week going to look like? What is the next month going to look like? And we're not like retrospective of kind of what happened and tying that to some of the results. So, this year in Ontario, those August, early September rains, critical for the soybean yield. How much rain did not happen in June and early July, critical when it comes to the corn yield. Yep. You think back to 2019 in Western Canada, it was those late June, early July rains that saved a crop that nobody thought would actually happen or come through whatsoever. We worked our way back to somewhat of an average. So the timing of that precipitation or that environmental event really it has a huge impact on what actually happened as we try to look back over the years, which is a critical part of trying to make better decisions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, to me that we have all this data and we're still trying to understand how it all fits together. And when I think, if I remember back when I was working in retail as a consultant or an agronomist, we'd take yield, and that would be the most determining factor when making decisions for the following year. We'd have 2 or 3 hybrids or varieties grown on a farm, yep, and we'd go with the one that performed the best without looking at what you just mentioned, the factors that may have had impact on it. So we can start there, but if I've got a hybrid that you kind of remember as I'm going across acres that it performed really well on this farm or field, but then it's halfway down on my overall list when I'm looking at my overall summary of performance, and that's where you need to have the diligence and to start to dig into some of those other factors.
So does the ClimateView platform, does it pull in from other sources? Is it doing that kind of stuff on the input?
So we have partnerships where we can bring in information from, like, if we've got drone imagery or things like that. If I have a sprayer that I'm not collecting directly through a FieldView drive or having a third party apply something for me, we can take a memory stick to the monitor, get that data, bring it to my computer, and upload it to get that information. Yeah. So we do have integrations with partners. They're on our website on the partners page that you can see what those integrations look like.
Yeah, because I think it's got to be a challenge. I'll describe it that way, in terms of trying to make sure the software, the program fits to all the different brands of machinery that are out there. Being brand agnostic it sounds great. It's a big challenge to make it work.
Big challenge, very big challenge. We have a team that's devoted to that with our FieldView drive. So I don't know if you've had somebody talk about the way that we collect our information, but we have a device, FieldView Drive, that plugs into the diagnostic port in a piece of equipment, and it reads, if I'm seeding or planting, it's going to read things like seeding rate, the speed, the date that I'm doing it, the elevation, all coming through that monitor. And that drive connects to an iPad, and the iPad becomes that storage device.
Okay.
I manually have to enter the hybrid or variety that I'm seeding, and that's how that data is collected. You say being brand agnostic is tough. When I started with FieldView 4 years ago, we were on red and green, planters, not seeders, planters, and combines.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty simple, except not many farms are, well, there are farms that are either all of those two mixed or one or the other, but then you get a whole bunch of differences, and Western Canadian agriculture is very different than Eastern Canadian agriculture when it comes to equipment, especially with seeders versus planters. So that was a big move by Climate FieldView to make sure that we could address those needs of the Western Canadian farmer. And I think we've done a decent job. We can continue to strive and get better. We're not quite on 100% of it, but we get a lot closer.
Okay, let's talk about sharing. So we've collected the data. We've been going through it. We've got some information now. It's no longer data; it's information. Talk about the sharing capabilities and what that kind of looks like. Because Denise kind of hit on this when she was on the show a couple of weeks ago, in terms of the power of this and also the privacy of it.
Yeah. So within FieldView, as a user, I have the opportunity to share my fields with other people that have a FieldView account. So it can be an advisor, it can be another farmer, it can be somebody that works for the company that I purchased my seed from, and they have to have a FieldView account to view it in the same platform. But I can, as a farmer, I can choose if I want to share one farm down to one field. If I only want to share the information and not the yield. So maybe I don't want somebody to see my yield map. I have the choice to make that as a farmer.
Oh, that's cool.
And at any time I can go in. So I've shared, you're my seed rep, and I want to share the field that you gave me that new seed hybrid for. So I share that with you. But in 21, I'm not going to be growing that same crop or that same hybrid.
You're not? Why are you not buying from me?
Because I believe in rotation, which is best for my ground and performance. So I'm going to be planting a different crop, and you don't happen to sell that type of seed that I need. So I can go in and I can remove that sharing. So now the next year I'm on a different crop. Maybe the performance of your product wasn't very good, so I did go to the next one and went to the other company. So now I'm sharing with the other guy.
I can't believe you've left me just that easily. It's just I thought we had good genetics over here at my company, and Marvin. I don't know what to say to you. I'm just really disappointed. Okay, the toggling. What's that?
I just want to comment. You brought up data privacy, and that's something that we hear a lot of when we talk about this precision and digital space, and the whose information is it, and how does it get shared. And one of the things with the Climate FieldView platform is that decision is always the farmers to make. So whether he's sharing it with he or she is sharing it with advisors or consultants or other farmers, that's their choice. And when they connect to one of our platform partners, it's their role to actually connect the two accounts. It's not something that we do or their dealer or anybody does on their behalf. They have to do it on their own. And we're very, very, we want the farmer to know that it is their information and they have the control of it. So.
Okay, good point. Hey, Marvin, if I got you a RealAg hat, would you come back and buy genetics from me next year? Would that help?
Yeah,
How about a
sure.
gift certificate to the keg? Would that work for
Oh,
you?
that would work. Yeah.
That would work. Okay, let's talk about satellite imagery at harvest. What role does it play?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things that where satellite imagery can provide some insight potentially at harvest. If I'm, first thing is farmers have trials, and satellite imagery might be able to identify something going on in the field that you want to track at harvest. And an example of this I can think of in a lot of crops. When we apply a fungicide, it adds a greening effect, and it will show up staying healthier later in the season. So whether or not I was able to track that with my equipment, maybe my equipment wasn't compatible, but I did leave that check strip. So I've got a field that my imagery is showing that the biomass or the crop is staying green, and yet my check strip is visually showing up as drying down. So I can use that as a gauge when I have harvest information to determine. I can put my satellite image beside my yield map and create those regions that I talked about and do that evaluation. Did my fungicide actually provide a good return on the investment? Secondly, if I'm looking at my imagery, looking at all my fields of soybeans here in Eastern Canada as we're getting close to soybean harvest, I can sort them by highest biomass to low or vice versa, and that can help me determine potential harvest order, which field is senescing or drying down faster than others, and thus help me evaluate where to harvest first. For some farms that are smaller, maybe that's not a huge benefit, but for other larger farms, it can help with the logistics of it.
You know, I've actually never heard that justification before. That's a really interesting one.
Yeah, we've had farmers use that in different crops and tell us that's one of the use cases that they've used that imagery for.
I think that's, when we're able to, once again, this layering of the imagery and maybe some drone stuff, and then we've got the yield map. Like to me, all of that just really just adds to it. One, it fills data gaps, and two, I'm making up my own language here, but it increases the density of the data points to make better information.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that is in this space that we're talking about today, it's probably one of the things that I think we struggle with is how much is too much, how much is not enough, how can we fill in those gaps, what can we use to fill in gaps where we need more information, and how much does a farmer really need to make those decisions, and it's got to be simple at the same time.
Yeah. I know for some farmers watching or listening to this on podcast after the fact, there's some people still challenged with trying to figure out where to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we focus a lot on the people that are trying to go like full Monty, like they are all in. But there's a lot of people that are in that dipping their toe or just trying to figure out how to get started.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations, or like what do I need to have to be able to do some of these things and get started?
I think we started this conversation today talking about yield maps being the first dip into this digital or precision space, and I think if I'm just getting started, that's probably where I would make an investment is getting my yield information, because that really gives us a picture of what's going on in the field. And then secondly, I think knowing what our soil has to offer to us is another place. That's my agronomy background coming back at me. We need to know what's in our soil. We need to know how uniform or not uniform it is, so we can address the fertility issues. We can look at potential drainage issues and address those things, because to me those are two places that if we don't have those established, that base from a soil perspective, some of the other things aren't going to give you that return that you're expecting. Those are the places that I think need to be addressed. That's the base. We need that base fertility. We need that base soil structure, and then using yield to make decisions on those changes can have a real impact.
Yeah, and I think the other, I don't know if it's a mistake or misconception out there, is that this is like a large farm thing.
Yep.
And like some other products and services that are out there, I actually think I could make up a justification or argument for you that if I was a one-man band, some of these tools are maybe more powerful for me.
Yeah, I would say, some of our I don't know what the word is, but in digital, some of those smaller farms, they almost need. They don't need. They use these tools and levels of management because they don't have the acres to spread their margin on. They need to make more off of every acre, and not that large farms don't. We all want to make the most off of every acre that we're farming. But if I'm a smaller farmer, I've got a smaller base to support what I'm doing. I really have to watch, and we all have to watch where those dollars are going to get that return, and that's where these tools really can help us track products where we're putting them, how much we're putting, and start to look at improving that bottom line.
Yeah, if you're in the Ontario Corn Belt and land's 15 to 22,000 an acre, it's kind of a little bit of a deterrent for some. And hey, maybe try to get a little bit more from the land that you already have under your control. It's a big factor. We saw FCC with their land price report for the first 6 months of the year, and Alberta and Saskatchewan, Alberta was up like I think 5%. So it's land prices keep going up. So all this becomes more a part of the equation. Hey, Marvin, if somebody wants more information on Climate FieldView, where do they go?
Yeah, so go to our website, climatefieldview.ca. That's a great spot. That you can get in contact with our climate business managers there, and they'll reach out to you. That's probably be the best place to start.
Okay, cool. Hey, Marvin, thanks a lot for joining us here today.
Hey, no worries. Thanks, Shaun.
That is Marvin Talsma. He's with Climate FieldView. Okay, hey, tomorrow on RealAg Live, we're going to have a fun one. We are going to have a discussion with Joy Agnew. She's with Olds College, and we're going to talk all about storage of your grains and oil seeds. We work so hard through the growing season to make sure that we get that crop in the bin, and then to have issues while it's in the bin is just absolutely heartbreaking. Some of this crop in Western Canada went into the bin exceptionally warm. It's hot, and we got to make sure that we're doing all the best management practices to ensure that we don't have any issues as we get through the winter months. So that'll be Joy Agnew with Olds College tomorrow on the show. Hey, big thanks to Marvin Talsma and everybody at Climate FieldView for being the guest here today on the show. If you have any feedback at all, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Send us a tweet @realagriculture, or you can call the RealAg listener line. It is 855-776-6147. Thanks a lot for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Live. Don't forget to watch or listen to RealAg Radio on Rural Radio 147 at 4:30 Eastern, 2:30 Mountain. And we'll chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.